In today's video, we will be going through the entire Water 7 and Enies lobby arcs and ranking every single fight within these from worst to best. I'm doing my best to catch up with the rest of the world, but we are still a long ways away, so just give me some time. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe as we are close to 50,000 subscribers. Wow. Okay, enough yapping, let's go. Now in the shit tier, we have two fights that just took years off my life. To be in the shit tier in any of my videos, you have to like personally insult me from being so bad. But that's what we have in this first fight with Sanji and the noodle guy. Oh my god, this fight, bro. I know everyone complains about One Piece's pacing issues, but this is one of the only fights in the entire last two arcs where I was just spam skipping the +10 button trying not to fall asleep. I've noticed that like with a lot of older animes, they have this issue where they just waste so much time against these shitters that we all know have 0% chance of winning, so it's just like a waste of all our time. And if you look at a show like JJK, whenever there is a shitter fight once in a while, they make sure to not let it drag for more than like a minute. But I swear to God, this fight went on and off screen through like 3 to 4 episodes. I wanted to do a backflip off the Tower of Law. This shit was so boring. But yeah, Sanji versus Noodle Man takes the crown for the absolute most dog shit fight in this entire video. Next up in 24th, we have the other fight in this tier, which is Zoro and Usopp versus the two CP9 members. This fight just annoyed me because when we first met CP9, they seemed like there'd be a massive issue with how strong they were. Then when all the fighting started, they just seemed to be like dumbed down for the plot and felt like 50 times weaker than what we initially saw. I don't like when shows ruin tense moments for dumb gags. Now, sometimes it's funny, but in this case, it was just goofy for such a long time and such a waste of screen time. Also, I don't know what kind of furry fetish shit was going on with Oda in this arc because the amount of goofy animals we see is unreal. Plus, I already didn't like Usopp, and seeing him accidentally lock the handcuffs on him and Zoro was so dumb. I wanted to climb through the screen and beat his ass myself. Although there actually were some funny moments in this fight, like when Zoro said they'd play rock, paper, scissors to see whose arm they'd cut off, or when he just uses bro as a sword. But yeah, overall we wasted like 5 episodes in this clown shit, which just annoys me more than anything. Next we have the Met tier, which is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It improves my life about 0%, and it just exists to waste my time and keep the plot moving forward. Now, I know this first fight doesn't actually fall into the category, but it's Usopp versus Luffy. I know this is one of the highest rated episodes in these arcs, but I just can't stand Usopp a lot of the time. At the end of the arc, he gets slightly better, but at the beginning, he pissed me off to such a degree. I just wanted to see him die. They get to Water 7 with 300 million berries after selling their gold from Skypiea. They almost just lose the money. Then when they get it back, he was told to stay next to Luffy, and he fucking wanders off and gets robbed. Oh my god, you monkey. Then when they find out the news that the going merry is unfixable, instead of taking the truth like a good little boy, he starts full tweaking, schizoing out at Luffy like it's his fault, and cries and leaves the group. I know it's because he was insecure or whatever, but in what universe is Luffy the type of guy to kick him out of the group for being weak? You being weak isn't news, little bro. Then the actual fight was just whatever, but I just thought Usopp was being brain dead and was in the wrong the entire time. So because he was so stupid and insufferable, I just fucking couldn't stand this fight. Actually, you know what? Fuck this guy. I'm moving it down to the shit tier. That fight was ass. Okay, now for our actual first fight in the Met tier, we have Zoro versus Kaku pre-Devil Fruit. This fight was just super short without really anything happening, but it was a decent sequence for a bit, so sure, why not? Then one higher, we have Frankie versus the CP9 apprentice shitter. First off, this guy is so ugly. Actually just hard to look at. But they get to fighting, pretty standard shit, until the guy finds out his weak spots on his back. And to counter this knowledge, he just lays face up on the train. I love Frankie, bro. I'm so happy he joined the group. Plus, he has the same voice actor as the GOAT himself, Mr. 2. So the fact that his voice is permanently in the group is peak. Frankie transforms into some weird wrong direction centaur, wrapping his legs around him before taking him to Pound Town, one-tapping him. That's my GOAT right there. Now entering our top 20, we have Nami versus the weird bubble girl. Yo, once again, I don't know what kind of weird gooner shit Oda is on right in this fight, but he literally opens with her butt-ass naked flashing Nami. Sure, why not? They have a fight, and eventually she goes full predator mode, groping Nami all over her body with her weird soap power shit to make her look, weird as shit and very weak. She eventually gets it off her, and up until this point, it was pretty boring, and it would have gone lower, but then she actually makes me laugh doing her weird illusion trick with her new climb attack as we see all these weird-ass Namis. Dude, the short, fat one made me laugh every time it was on screen. Nami low-key goated for being able to solo a CP9 member, even if she was toying with her for a good amount of time. Now, nearing the top of our met tier, we have a bum sop trying to get the money back from the Frankie family, and they'll just beat his ass. Listen, I get that Oda was trying to make this into like a sad scene where he felt bad for Usopp in the beginning of this arc, but he was just so dumb I couldn't help but laugh. Like, I get you feel bad for losing the money, but what are you even thinking solo charging in like you're Luffy or something? It was just so dumb. And then finally at the top of the met here, we have the beginning of Water 7 when the Frankie family tries to rob Zoro on their ship. It was just kind of funny watching these shitters try to solo Zoro. On first watch, I was like, why doesn't he just end them all? Because that's what I would have done. But I guess in hindsight, it's lucky I'm not Zoro because they actually were useful later in the arc. Real quick, guys, just want to let you guys know I do have a Patreon where I am reacting to the block manga. Konigami fucking saved it! So if that sounds interesting, check it out. Now entering the good tier, we have the fights that I actually enjoyed for at least one reason or another. Most of these fights are still pretty forgettable though. I've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of anime fights at this point in my life, so if they're not at least in the great tier, I'll probably never remember them after first watch. But let's hop into it anyway. In 17th, we have Frankie versus Luffy in the Gali Law. When Robin first tried to kill Iceberg, it was just a cool introduction to Frankie and his cyborg abilities. One thing that annoyed me in this fight was how quick they were to attack Luffy without any actual proof after he even said he didn't do it. Like, I get it on some level, but he looked really confused and was refusing to fight back, so I feel like that should be a good sign he's innocent. But then after realizing they're all undercover CP9 members, it made a little bit more sense. But yeah, just, Now we have the introduction to the Gali Law members as they beat the brakes off these random pirates who try to show up and bully them around. I liked most of them, and it was cool to see how strong these random shipwrights were in Water 7. And, now looking back at it, they were so lucky they weren't in like assassin mode, because this brother Lucci would have gladly diddled them if he could. Then we have the Frankie family versus the Giants at the gates of Enies lobby. This shit was so funny. I remember the big guy stood up with this motivational speech just to get instantly washed and no diff. Also on rewatch, some of these guys for sure died, but we kind of just gloss over it in the story. They're getting farmed until Zanbai the Goat enters with Sodom and Gomorrah, starting the real siege. Everyone had some impact, and it was just overall, fun and wasn't dragged too long, which is honestly the biggest issue in most fights in the show. Then in 14th, we have Bluno versus this random shipwright in Iceberg's mansion. Dude, when these mass dudes showed up and started just destroying everyone, I saw him break the mallet, then one-tap this guy. I was shook. These CP9 guys were actual monsters when they first appeared, before they, got giga nerfed for their plot to happen. But yeah, the first appearance was a great show of power. Next up, this one could barely be considered a fight, but it made me laugh, so that's why it's high up here. Sanji appears to save Usopp and Frank in the train, and these are two random shitters appear acting like some Team Rocket. Prepare for trouble, make it double, head ass. And they think they're so tough just to get instantly one-tapped by Sanji. It was so short and sweet. Plus, it made me laugh. And that's all you really need to have to be better than the average One Piece fight, sad to say. So yeah. Another quick fun fight was between Zoro and this master marine swordsman guy. They were hyping him up to be some super powerful demon that could cut through entire ships himself, yada yada yada. And then after 5 minutes of glaze and build-up, my goat Zoro flies in, just fucking one-tapping him, letting them continue on their journey. My goat. Now nearing the top 11, we have the Marines versus everyone at the very end of the arc. Thinking about it, I really enjoy the group fights in this show way more than the shitty format of giving everyone their own 1v1 each arc. It's much more chaotic and less obvious what will happen. That's why I really liked the free-for-all fight in the Skypiea arc, because yeah, it was just fun and random. Even fucking Usopp out here beating these guys in a close range fight. I don't know, bro. If you're losing to Usopp close range, you may gotta reevaluate your skills as a fighter. Same thing with the hundreds of Marines getting farmed by Nami. And then my favorite scene is all the soldiers having blades or guns, and then this one dumbass tries to run up on Frankie with fucking boxing gloves. This shit was so funny when I first saw it. Yeah, bro, let's bring gloves to a fight instead of a gun or sword against this super powered cyborg. Max Goofy, but I just like this small group fight. Now entering the top 10, we have this fat Choppa Puff fucker versus the GOAT, Frankie. This guy kind of looks like a bum, but I kind of got some respect for him because when the fight started, they started going like band for band, like real men throwing punches. Then Chopper keeps throwing him different drinks to power up, and he completely changes personality each time. See, like, I don't know why, but adding goofiness in some fights annoys me versus some don't. I think it's because in this fight it was only like 30 seconds long versus like the entire fight. But yeah, he eventually powers up all the way, rocking this guy as they continue their fight. It gets kind of boring from there, but you know, I'll give it a slight pass because Frankie's my goat. Now entering the top of our good tier, we have Zoro versus Kaku. This fight was just too fucking long, and it was just this goofy giraffe attack after another goofy giraffe attack. It could have been short and cute, but no, this fight was so many episodes long. The only reason it's so high in the list is at the very end of the fight, Zoro unlocks this new sick-ass move beating him. He spawns this dark aura while having 3 heads and 9 blades, finishing him off. Overall, really cool, but this fight could have been like 5 minutes instead of 30. And then finally at the top of the good tier, we have Luffy fucking with these random guards. This shit was just hilarious because he could have easily just one-tapped all of them within 5 seconds, but instead decides to hard troll, wrapping himself around this guy, using him as a human shield to fight his teammates with. God, this was great. I literally do not know what compelled him to do this in this moment, but it was just so fucking funny that I decided it needed to go high up in the list. And also, he steps on these guys' heads and clanks them together. Like, I don't understand why he wanted to go full bully mode against these guys, but sure, I'm all here for it. And now entering the top 7, we have the great tier. These are the fights that they had some sauce and will potentially be remembered for longer than a week. But yeah, first up we have Ace versus Blackbeard. Now this fight could have been higher, but they barely threw it more than like 3 attacks. The reason it goes so high though for me is because firstly, I like both the characters. And secondly, we actually get some cool lore in this episode. Also, Blackbeard has the same voice actor as Thorkel and Yujiro, so I kind of just knew he'd be a menace. And yeah, I was right, as apparently he ate the strongest Logia fruit in the entire world, like the dark fruit, I think it was, that is said to be one of the strongest and most evil, as he can consume everything around him in darkness and destroy it all. Plus, it has the ability to nullify fruit powers when touching someone, which seems pretty OP, as we saw against Ace. Also, speaking of, this fight could have gone higher, but we literally don't even get this at the end of it within this arc, and you know, that's the video, so unlucky. But yeah, interested to see more of Blackbeard later in the show. Now on higher, we have the CP9 unmasking and diddling everyone. This fight wasn't too crazy, but I really just enjoyed the scene as a whole. First off, seeing CP9 people being the Gali Law was a crazy plot twist I did not expect on first watch. But then even crazier than that is how fucking hard they were diddling Zoro and Luffy. When I saw them eat Luffy's first punch, I was like, because what do you mean the guy who beat Crocodile and Eneru can't even damage this default CP9 soldier? Then seeing Lucci transform and body them was just scary. I remember like talking to my friend here and being like, guys, I have no idea how this is supposed to beat them because they're just walking nuclear bombs. Now, ladies and gentlemen, entering the top 5, as a surprise to everyone, a Chopper fight? Chopper was fighting this random ass annoying CP9 member, and then out of nowhere, getting pushed to the edge, he shows off a new power. By using a third Rumble Ball, he loses all control, becoming this insane monster who just towers over this massive guy himself. God damn! For once, Chopper has some aura. When I first saw this, my jaw was to the floor because what do you mean this 1 foot tall reindeer can turn into like a fucking Dark Souls boss? Also, the same attacks that were washing everyone in the previous fight were just bouncing off him like bug bites without him even reacting. His roar was enough to make this guy shit himself to the point he couldn't even move because he could just sense he was gonna die. Then Chopper whips his 15-foot shimmy on bro, smashing him. This one punch nearly one-shots him, and then he gets on top of him, bashing him over and over again. Then my favorite part of the fight is when he's fully dead, Chopper just pegs his ass away like a used nut rag. I was thinking about it, but even though Chopper is pretty weak, in literally every arc, he's kind of clutched up against strong opponents. Mr. 4 and Miss Merry Christmas and Alabasta, one of the priests in Skypiea, and now a CP9 member. Unfortunately, he only got a $50 bounty. Next up, we have Sanji showing up in the tower to save Usopp from the weird wolf guy. They fight for a few minutes, and unlike the weird shitty giraffe fight, this one is just much shorter and got to the point a lot quicker. Then Sanji starts farming him, so he tries to come up with this brain-dead sob story about how Sanji needs to leave now and save Robin because, and I quote, Robin's his little sister and pirates stole her from him. Like, bruh. This is the most dog shit fake story I've ever heard in my life. Even the animators didn't bother drawing it perfectly because they knew no one would be dumb enough to fall for such a gobbledygook. Well, actually, Luffy and Chopper would probably fall for it, considering they weren't even smart enough to realize this guy was Usopp. Now, truthfully, this fight wouldn't be this high up if it weren't for the ending, where he unlocks this new cool-ass move by spinning around like millions of times a second, heating his leg up to the point where it becomes like fire. Basically, as he absolutely neuters this wolf monkey, hitting a banger kick ending the fight. I'm putting it much higher than the Zoro fight because it was just less goofy and a lot less long. Plus, I don't know, I go back and forth a lot with who I like more between Zoro and Sanji, but I think I'm typically leaning a little bit more towards Sanji. My only question is, how is Sanji not dying with his leg being on fire like this? I don't know. Now, getting near the top, we have our third place fight with Luffy and the rest of his gang bulldozing the Frankie house. After they beat the shit out of Usopp in the previous episodes, Luffy and the rest of the gang find out and they decide they need to get their get back for their boy. Watching all of them roll up on the house to avenge their boy was so tough. Actually, it could have been better if Chopper wasn't there. No offense, but like, you don't got as much aura as these three. Like, move out of the frame. But yeah, they get to business, bending over every single one of these guys. And after watching this whole arc, it's definitely one of the biggest mismatches in power I've seen in a while. But it was just satisfying and a great scene to show how much the crew cares about each other. Which is also why I do not understand why Usopp left being all insecure, like Luffy would just abandon him. But whatever. Yeah, overall tough scene and good fight. Now entering our top two in the legendary tier. This fight is reserved for the peak fights of the show that you'll remember for years down the line telling your fucking grandkids because of how hyped they were. But our first fight in this tier is Luffy going Gear 2 for the first time against Blueno. First of all, we could just tell our goat was locked because his previous punches were doing nothing, but now he's kind of rocking this guy around. But after going back and forth for a bit, Luffy's like, alright, little bro, it's time to sit you down, as he whips out his massive wiener going Gear 2 for the first time. Now, obviously, as you know, I'm on the internet, so I knew he has up to 5 gears, but I didn't know when he unlocks them, so after finally seeing one, after all this time, it was pretty peak. But then when he finally goes Gear 2, he's just speed mogging this guy, flying around so fast he can't even react, while getting the most diabolical combos getting hit on him. And at the end of this fight, before he falls over, Luffy thinks he needs to hit him harder, where he see him almost utter the words Gear 3. Like, I knew he had 5 gears, but I didn't think he already unlocked Gear 3 at the same time as Gear 2. That was a crazy twist I did not expect to see on first watch. And then finally, a surprise to a total of 0 viewers watching this video, we have Luffy versus Lucci. When I first saw him early in the arc, he just seemed like the most tier 4 side character. So when he was revealed to be the final boss, it was definitely kind of shocking. But yeah, this fight was just epic overall. When Luffy hinted at Gear 3 at the end of the last fight, I definitely thought it was going to be the main weapon against Lucci. No, he only used it like 1 or 2 times. Gear 3 is pretty cool, but I'm going to be honest, I think Gear 2 has more aura. Seeing him blast through entire buildings and ships with Gear 3 was pretty tough though. Although, it kind of reminds me of like Grade 3 Super Saiyan, if you know what I mean, because it makes him a lot slower, but stronger, so yeah. But back to the fight, he had a lot of tough moments, and at the end, when he went God mode, shooting like 8 billion gum pistols per second into Lucci, destroying him was sick as fuck. But yeah, that's more or less the video. I'll probably do one of these for Marineford or any other season people tell me is peak. But for now, like and subscribe as it helps a lot. Once again, thanks to our goated members in the special grade tier of our Patreon with Yuri, Savage Toby's wife, Jordan, and Silver King. I appreciate you guys a lot, and yeah, I will see you guys next one. Peace.